Do you guys remember this rock from my top 10 list, in which this rock made it all the way to number 5? Well, guess you found another one. But first, let me show you the bottom of this rock. I mean, it looks really weird. It has a big black spot and a weird stripe. I'm not sure what kind of deformities these are, however, it formed pretty weirdly. Here's the new rock. The first thing to mention is this rock is quite a bit bigger than my first one. Not to mention, it kinda has a lot of moss on it. From what I noticed, this rock pretty much has the same kind of like black and white coloration on it, however the sparkles is quite a bit different from the two rocks. The sparkles on this new rock aren't really as visible. What this means is that the rock either has smaller sparkles and or just less of them. And right here you can see some of that moss, which is very unfortunate, but oh well. When I put the two rocks next to each other, you can kind of see some of the similarities. Despite one being a lot larger than the other, the crystals on them kind of seem to be around the same size. Now this is a really important fact to know when we try to identify this rock. As a reminder, the first rock has some weird blemishes on the bottom. However, on the bigger rock, the only major blemish I can really see is this kind of moss, which isn't really a blemish at all. However, after filming and looking at the rock, I realized there is kind of a big black spot on the second one as well. Though some of you might be wondering, what is this rock and what is it called? I do not know the name of this rock, however, I do know what type of rock it is and how it formed and its relatives. This rock right here is a diorite, and or granite, because they're kind of like the same thing pretty much. Now what's really important to note from this rock specimen right here is that it has kind of like the same size crystals and they're kind of like around the same shape-ish. This rock right here is another good example. Overall, the minerals on this rock are kind of like the same size, they're kind of the same shape too. They're not like really all that different. Our two rocks have the same exact thing going on. Now this rock is kind of a different story. Overall, it is kind of the same type of rock, however the interior of this rock looks quite a bit different from the outside. However, do not let this fool you, because the rock at some point in time was probably the exact same, however due to erosion and or weathering, the rock on the outside has been very eroded. So, what does this all mean? Considering how this rock has a lot of similarities to diorite and granite, this rock is probably within the same kind of category. Considering how the minerals are kind of the same size and shape, I would say this is probably an igneous intrusive rock. Not to mention this rock has a lot of sparkles, which means this rock is probably igneous anyways. So what we know is this rock is an igneous intrusive and is probably made of the same minerals as diorite and granite, which means they're really similar, however, that's all we know. That's pretty much it. I'll see you guys later.